Welcome to the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. We're going to explore ways to sharpen our diagnostic skills, find learning resources, and hear from experts in the automotive field. Hey, what's going on, automotive world? Welcome to another episode of the Automotive Diagnostic Podcast. My name is Sean Tipping, and I will once again be your host for this week's episode. Thank you for joining me. On the show this week, I've got Scott Hicks joining me. I met Scott in North Carolina. He's a technician there. He's going to talk about his journey in the automotive field, how he got to where he's at, and we're also going to discuss his transition that he's made from the European side of things to the independent or everything side of things and what he's experienced there. We'll chat about a number of other things in the automotive field as well, but it was great to meet Scott, and we had a great discussion. Hopefully you'll enjoy it as well. With that out of the way, we'll jump in.
And the reason I asked, I was like, I really thought they had stuff to kind of take care of noise like that. And David on ASTE is always like, stop that. I'm like, what are they talking? And then I'll hear it, and he's like, yeah, I can't get rid of that. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't get rid of these noises? Why are they even being picked up? So,
I mean, I don't do a ton of the in-person interviews. Most of my stuff's remote, and it's tough to control what's happening on the other side of things,
see, I didn't think about that. That makes sense because whatever's coming through their mic is what you get.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll try to do like a little test because I can see
give you like a noise level.
It's a waveform, right?
Yeah.
And
Audacity, yeah.
And I can see, if there's, I've edited enough now where I can see it where if there's like a lot of background noise or people do various things. They'll use a Bluetooth mic, they'll use your phone, they'll use this, they'll use the computer, and it all kind of has its own little ins and outs. The ones I have the worst trouble with, and I think it might be my software that I used, but are the gaming headphones. So really? You got the headphones, and then you got the mic that's built into it right here, which you would think is fine, but for whatever reason, it picks up me on their end. So if I'm talking, what I want is just my mic on my end recording me, but it's recording on theirs too. And so then it's like echoing back through the recording. But yeah, other than that, it's just as long as people aren't like, moving around or anything but that's just part of it is you run into some technical difficulties, just like anything else in life, right?
I mean, our lives.
Exactly. So. Yeah, no different at all. And waveforms, right? I get to sit and edit a waveform. I know what looks like as a waveform. I've heard it. I say it so many times. Yeah. Cool. Well, I hit the record. I always do that right away. Why don't you introduce yourself for everybody listening and me? I just met you like a minute ago. So.
Yeah. Scott Hicks. I've been mostly European, working on European vehicles I've only been doing this about 15 years. I say only, that's long enough. But being that I'm 40, that would have been a lot longer for most people. I was in the military, so I didn't start until much later than most.
What did you do in the military?
Well, as little as possible. No, just kidding. So actually, I started out literally National Guard. I just wanted school for money for school, and to do that, and then I got sent overseas back in 2006.
Okay,
shortly after.
Sure.
Everything happened. So, I was over there about just under a year, came back 6 months, went right back over there. So I finished out my time active duty military. But after that second tour, I was like, not everybody's coming home. And the longer I'm in, I'm going back if I keep doing this. So it's just going to be a matter of time before the chances get higher and higher. So that's because everybody's asking like 9 years. Why didn't you were halfway there, just retired. I was like, can't retire if you don't make it back. So,
sure. Right.
So, but when I got out of that, that's when I started. I gained my interest in automotive stuff while I was there. I did a lot of security detachment stuff, and I was attached to a unit that was They did engineering stuff, like grading stuff and cleaning up. Like when they would have stuff on the side of the road blow up, they'd go out and try to fill those potholes and stuff so that they didn't have time to plant IEDs there. So we were trying to fill all those holes in. So I was pulling security for those guys. And with that was a motor pool where they're working on stuff. And downtime, I spent my time sitting in a motor pool where they're working on or fixing vehicles and stuff. And I don't know. And then it just kind of started.
Okay.
So got back, and it's been a couple of years getting lost and
Yeah.
refound. And then from there, I decided, okay, let's do this. And so I went to school and, tech school or whatever at a community college. And straight out of there, I was at BMW, got a job working for BMW dealer. And it wasn't very long because that's, then we're moving into 2008 stuff and everything's dying off, just the way things happen. And so I quickly found that I wasn't going to be able to make a living there. So I moved to an independent shop that worked on, at the time, just BMWs and Minis. And then a year or so later, we're like, oh, let's take on some more stuff. So we took on Mercedes. And basically, as we gained an employee that came from a dealership that knew the brand well and, really knew it, okay, now we can, and you feel comfortable someone's not just going to leave next week, something,
Yep.
So take that on and we'll purchase the equipment for that and, a new brand. And that's kind of how it grew into, European stuff. So
Okay.
I did that I was with them for about 7 years. And then I actually had an injury where I was out of work for 6 months.
Okay.
And I figured it was time for a change.
Yeah.
And so I ended up leaving there and going to a Honda dealership, basically because of friends I had and who I knew. And just that's where it seemed like I was going to get taken care of the best. And, if you're going to move, obviously, let's find somewhere that's going to really take care of us and, be a good environment. So I went there. It wasn't long until I started feeling the same kind of pains I had in my shoulder when I got hurt.
Okay.
In the other one. So I was like, I don't know if I can continue to do this. And so
rotator cuff or
it was a labial tear, which is literally, it was kind of right there with it. But luckily I did not, tear my rotator cuff or injure that. And so, but I'm sitting here, I'm like, what am I going to do? I've got a young family to support and my wife's in school and I go up to service manager and I'm just like, I'm almost in tears. I'm just like, what am I going to do? And he's like, we'll figure it out. Just like it's nothing. And I'm like, what do you mean we'll figure it out? He's like, well, can you sell? I said, I don't know. He said, let's give it a try. I was like, wait, what? So, he eased me into it. I picked up like weekend stuff, just doing that. And then I was, he just lightened up the stuff I worked on during the day so it could be a transition. And after the first couple weekends, he's like, just lock your box, man. Come on. So there I went for the next 3 years as a service writer.
Okay.
So
got to see the other side of it a little bit.
Yeah, I did. And that was interesting. And I actually was pretty decent at it. Surprisingly, I had no idea that I could sell anything. I still don't consider it sales because sales still has a little bit of, some people are like, ooh, sales is kind of slimy and kind of,
the used car sales.
Right, exactly, right. Yeah. And that's what I'm like, man, I don't want to sell. And it's like, I never considered what I did sales. I consider it building relationships. Because if you just build a relationship, well, now somebody trusts you, and rightfully so for the right reasons, and then they trust you. So we can, okay, if you tell me it needs this, it needs it.
Yep.
It's no longer let me sell you this. And that's what I never... Sure. That's what I couldn't get behind.
Yeah. So, I think service advisor is the best, title for that because that's what you're doing. You're advising the people on what their car requires to keep it going down the road or to get it started or whatever. You are that advisor. And yes, there are sales involved, but of course it does depend on where you're at, right? Like I worked at Firestone for a long time and those people up front were definitely trained to be salesmen, right? Upsell. We got to hit these numbers, this and that. And I don't know how it's like at your dealership or any other one, but I've worked at other shops too where, hey, here's your car, here's what's broken, what do you want to fix, right? I did some service writing too. I worked at a shop where I was both, right, as mechanic / service writer because it's a real small place, and that was it. Like, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, this is what's broken on your car. This is how much it would cost. What do you want to fix? That's it. And I wouldn't go any further than that, because I'm a terrible salesman. I mean, it's just not in my nature. It's like, do you want to do it or not? Okay, cool. Whatever. They want to do it. Sweet. Right. We'll get it out. But yeah, there is some, depending on where you go, there's definitely some sliminess out there.
Yeah. I mean, I saw it at that dealership. You know, I'd see some advisors and it's like, okay, that's what I don't want to do right there. Like, you just see an interaction and you're like, did you just tell them that? Like, you know, and it's,
yeah.
So, which I got, the nice thing about that is I actually, like I said, I did pretty well with it. And the service manager or service director, he saw that and he's like, so what do you think about being a service manager? And I was like, I don't know. I mean, you know, does it mean I don't have to sit out here and do this?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, cool. Let's see what that. So he actually made me a service lane manager is what they called it. And that's basically, I was still out in the service drive, and this is a big dealership. We had like 40 bays.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was fairly large.
Okay.
And at the time, we had 12 advisors, service advisors, 3 lanes wide in the service drive. Roughly 3 cars deep. So you could have 9 there at a time, and they were always backed up. 80 to 120 cars a day kind of thing.
Wow. Yeah, that's a big shop.
So, you know, basically at that point, I was just helping the other service advisors with, you know, if they needed help with anything really. Hey, you got a customer issue? Let me help you with that, so you can do what you need to do. Or even if it was, you know, I'm nervous going in here trying to sell them all this. This is a lot of stuff and all this stuff. I said, come with me. Let me help. So let me show you how to do it, so it's not the lying or the how you feel uneasy about it. It shouldn't be. It should be just don't get emotionally invested in it, which is something that's real easy to do when your pay depends on whether or not you sell this. And obviously, you know, that's kind of like flat rate, right? It's the same thing. It's if I don't get this done and I don't turn more, then I don't. So, and I can go both ways on that. I can see both sides fairly well. So
definitely, it's a big motivator for sure. You know, that's why it's in place in so many different shops, because it's self-motivating for a lot of people. Hey, it's my paycheck. But yeah, there's the obvious bad sides to it as well.
Right.
And it's a rough way to start as a technician too. Or maybe a sales associate too. It's just like, you don't know what you're doing yet, but your paycheck depends on your performance. That sucks. Sink or swim is not the way that we retain people in the industry.
Right. I mean, that was my first job, and when I was in tech school, I befriended a guy there, and he was a little bit older like I was, so it kind of just naturally worked that we kind of hit it off and had things in common, not just straight out of high school like most of the guys were. Yeah. And he was at the BMW dealership. Well, my whole plan was, okay, I just had this fascination about, well, basically anything other than domestic. And it wasn't that there was anything wrong with those. I just had a fascination about BMWs. Nice cars, right?
Yeah.
It's funny. Even then, I've had this car. I own a 1998 Honda Prelude.
Okay.
I have other cars. I've had other cars. I still have this car. It's what I drove here in. It's just, I just couldn't let go of it. And so I've always appreciated, you know, Hondas and Toyotas it used to be built really well.
Sure,
yeah.
From
and
the
they
90s.
Still are. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, you know, I wanted something outside of Ford and GM, which is the 2 programs they offered, or the 3. They had Ford, GM, and they had General. I think at the time they called it generic option, which they were changing because people don't like the term generic, you know.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
so, but that's fine. It's whatever you want to call it. And so he was there and he worked at the BMW dealership. So I got in with him to get an interview and meet some people and stuff, and it started there. And totally forgot where I was going with that.
So tech school, you met the guy.
I went straight into there as flat rate. Literally, my first automotive job.
Oh, okay.
Like, and that was one of the things in the interview. And I'm excited to be here or whatever. And so it's like, well, how do you feel? I mean, how are you going to survive if I put you on flat rate? And I said, I guess I'm going to work hard and spend the time here I need to spend, and I'm going to learn what I need to learn. And, you know, and I guess that was the right things because I got hired. And,
how was it?
It wasn't, I mean, it wasn't bad. I was much younger then and new to the industry.
Okay.
I actually didn't last at that dealership just probably under 6 months. The guy that I met in school and was working with, I was on his team there. I was doing some side work, and I was young enough in the business to not. Obviously, I know that that's a conflict of interest. I get that, but I didn't really think a whole lot of it. It had never been mentioned. I hadn't talked to him about it, and so I was like, there was one job that I was going to do, and I was like, I really need a shop, like, and so I asked him about it. I was like, do you want to help me with this job? And we can bring us. Is that something? He's like, yeah, just bring it here. Let's do it. Mm-hmm. I was like, and I stopped and I said, is that going to be okay? Well, I'm not BMW. It was a BMW. It absolutely was not okay.
Okay.
So he's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. I was like, okay. So here we go. Right after we closed, pulling this BMW in, and the shop foreman had walked through, and he's like, what is that?
It's BMW.
BMW. And he's like, there better be a ticket written on that. And I'm sitting there, and before I could say anything, he's like, yeah, there is, of course. I'm like, that probably wasn't the right thing to say. Owning it now might have been better for us. Yeah. And at that point, I'm like, oh, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously, he found out real quick it wasn't. The next morning, I'm sitting in the service director's office, and he's cussing both of us out and everything. I mean, He was old school, so it was literally like, we're getting a beating. Like,
okay.
Yeah. And so he made it very clear that he hadn't decided if he was going to fire us yet or not. However, we would be the last ones to get raises. We'd be the last one to go to training. We'd be the last one to get anything.
Yes.
And, my bay was literally, there was a window that looked into his office.
Oh, no.
And I said, I made it about a week. And I said, I just have this glare right here. And I said,
yeah.
Obviously, I've made some mistakes. I said, I just need to move on because, I don't want to be somewhere that's literally, I'm going to be held back the whole time because of an action I did. Mm-hmm. So I moved on pretty quick, and that's when I went into the independent side. So I didn't get a lot of dealership training at that time. But yeah, straight into flat rate though. Right?
Yeah. That's tough. That's tough.
Yeah.
I got to do hourly for the first 4 years that I was a tech, which was nice. Okay. Yeah. Once I transitioned to flat rate, now I had 4 years under my belt, so I kind of knew what I was doing at that point. But then once I finally transitioned, I doubled my salary. Sure. In the next year, I'm like, oh, why wasn't I doing this in the first place? But starting out, I definitely wouldn't have been at that point. You don't beat book time on stuff. Sometimes you double up what the book time says when it's not only a new job to you, but the whole skill set's new to you. As far as, what tools to use and how do I deal with this broken bolt, or how do I keep this bolt from breaking, and all that, all that stuff. But yeah, then once I transitioned, I did very well, but I was also young. I was in my 20s and be able to crank out that work. And yeah, you get a window of time where you're really proficient at that stuff and you can make the money. And then then it definitely slows down. You got to find, different routes and avenues to be productive or make money.
I mean, that's yes, I was actually in the exact same boat. Well, it took let's figure this out, and it was really the school of hard knocks, right? Like, I'm learning the absolute hardest way possible. And the other thing I had not mentioned was, so I'm sitting here doing this flat rate system, first job. I'm in school, so I'm only there half a day.
Yeah.
My bills are not getting, they're getting real close. Like, it's like, this is, so I went to team leader and I was like, I really don't want to drop out of school. However, I don't really see another option. Yeah. If I drop school and I'm here full time, I'll get more hours, right? And he's like, absolutely. I mean, you're going to be here twice as much. And I was like, okay. So against my better judgment, I dropped out. Then the thing is, I mean, I didn't have, I don't know, say 2 years is the whole program. I probably had a semester left. Oh, okay. So it wasn't that far off. I started picking up enough. I'd been working enough to, okay, I can probably survive and function and stuff like that. However, I still look back and be like, I really kind of wish I'd finished that just for the sake of it. Right. And so, yeah, but I mean, after that, I started, learning and growing, and I got to the point where, I could turn some work out. Like, typically one of the faster ones in the shop, if not the fastest one in the shop. And that's great for a while. Like you said, you get to a point and it's like, yeah, I'm getting sore. I'm getting tired. I'm physically, or I just flat out don't want to have to go that hard anymore.
Sure. Yeah, it's training. You're trying to turn out 20 hours in a day or whatever, and you're beat by the end of it for sure. I definitely experienced that quite a bit. It's like I know if I had to work, here, I could turn 100 hours every week, but I'd be absolutely destroyed and tired at the end of the week.
Right.
So it was kind of nice having the slow days. Sometimes, you get 2-3 of them in a row, then you're like, oh, okay, this sucks. The one I hated the most was where you would be slow all day. Like you're there and you're not really doing anything. There's no cars coming in, maybe an oil change or something. And then it's, you're scheduled to leave at 5 and it's 4:15 and now 4 cars show up and they want to sell all this work. And it's like,
right.
They want you to do it. And of course you kind of want to do it, but at the same time, it's like, well, I'm going to stay late and maybe make my 8 hours for the day.
Exactly.
That was always a rough situation for flat rates. It's got its negatives
for sure.
So now where are you at now?
So right now I'm at Autologic of Greensboro.
Oh, okay.
So I went, I guess as when I went to do the service manager thing at the dealership, that lasted, like I said, probably just over a year or so. And that service director, and he was phenomenal. He had finally had enough with the management of this dealership.
Yeah.
It's a whole chain franchise. So, and he was like, I'm out of here. I quit. I put in my notice and I'm like, wait, what? So he left. And of course, everything he was trying to shield and block from, upper management from us came rolling down really quick. And it was within maybe 2 months, my pay had dropped significantly. And his boss at the time was I guess the fix op director or whatever. It's just a large organization. So he is coming in, filling in while they're trying to find a service director. And he's like, I need you on the floor. I'm like, okay. So I'm back out on the service drive just selling, right? Or advising. And well, he changed my pay plan back. And he actually cut the last one off. He's like, I was like, where's my commission check? He's like, well, you weren't doing that job anymore. I was like, you understand there's a huge difference here, right?
Yeah.
So I was, I gave it a couple weeks and I said, hey, so I'm down probably $2,000 a month right now at this rate. And he's like, well, let's look it up. Numbers don't lie. Okay. So he does the math and he was a very much numbers guy. So he's like, let's look at the numbers. And it was, sure enough, he's like, well, it's $1,990 some literally was what I was down like those 2 months or whatever it was. And he's like, well, I got a little bit of leeway room. I'll help you out. And I was like, okay, cool. He said, before your pay gets submitted, I'll look at it. And so he calls me in there at the end of the pay period. He's like, hey, so this thing, it looks like you're doing pretty good. And I said, but according to who? According to what I was doing? Because I'm not. Like I told you, we saw the numbers. $2,000 a month is a significant change. And so he's like, okay, well, I'm going to keep an eye on it. I'll make sure it doesn't go too low. I was like, okay. And literally, I think I made it another month or so. And it just, every single one of them, never heard anything, never had any help, anything. So I was like, okay, I'm out of here. And I got to the point where I was like, okay, I don't enjoy the job like I used to.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm going to go back and work on cars. So I went back to the same independent shop, the European shop that I'd worked at for 7 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Before leaving and going there. And that's what I had done up until 2.5 weeks ago.
Okay.
So I went back to them and, before I left the first time, I don't know if I mentioned, I ended up being their shop foreman and I did get on salary for the last couple of years I was there. And it was, hey, you figured this out because I'm paying you salary and they need to turn hours. Cool.
Sure.
And I loved it. I did.
Yep.
That's really where I cut my teeth on learning to diagnose things. I did a lot of it the hard way because I didn't have anybody mentoring me. What I had back then was Scanner Danner. He literally, I bought his book like when it first came out.
Okay.
He was still doing revisions and stuff all the time, and
Yeah.
so that obviously helped quite a bit. But I learned it the hard way for sure. I didn't, I don't edit training and stuff. I didn't have any of that. So, but I really enjoyed the diagnostics, always did. And so, okay, well, cool. I've got, I can sit over here, and if it takes me 4 hours to figure something out, it's whatever, you're on salary. Come to find out, compared to what they were paying everyone, it wasn't hurting them at all, because I was incredibly underpaid for
what you were doing.
For what I was doing, especially looking at it back now, and even compared to the other guys that, had zero responsibility. They didn't work weekends and all these other things.
Okay.
They're making way more than I am. And of course, I'm there 6 days a week, and
yeah,
I've got to be the first one to open the shop. I've got to be the last one to leave, and, everything. And so, but that part was really nice. It gave me the opportunity to really learn, and the opportunity to kind of make some mistakes, because, okay, that was wrong. Wait, and I had the chance to look and figure it out, and I wasn't pressured real hard. Mm-hmm. So that was nice. But I went back to them, and, at the time it was like, okay, going right back to flat rate. So, just head down. Let's make some of that money up. Let's get back to where we were, and just focus on that. And I hadn't turned wrenches in 4 years, 5 years, whatever it was. So, it was time to, I just needed to focus, because it was like, a lot's changed. Everybody's like, no, man, it's not really changed. I said, you guys weren't out of this for 4 or 5 years. A lot has changed. So, so I spend my days just, I'd say the first year was just kind of a struggle for, especially the diagnostic side, because I was just like, nothing looks the way it was. Nothing acts, there's so much new technology. There's so many new strategies for figuring things out and calculating things. So, and we had one of the guys that worked for me when I had left there, brilliant tech, one of the smarter techs I've ever met to this day. And he had become their shop foreman, and that's what he did. He would diagnose all the stuff that was harder, or he would help somebody or whatever. So cool. I didn't have to focus real hard on it, because he would just take care of it. I could just turn hours.
Sure.
And so I did it for a couple hours, and then he decided he was going to leave. And so by that time, of course, I'd known them for so long, and I'd already kind of fallen into the role. If somebody needs help, of course, I'll help you if he's not around or whatever. So naturally back into that kind of role. And they're like, well, we don't want a shop foreman, but we're going to split it up into teams here. And okay, what does that mean? And, so we'll just split the shop in half, and two of us basically would dispatch work to the guys, and if they need help, of course, we do that, and, that sort of thing. So basically 2 shop foremen is what it was. Ultimately.
Yeah.
And, but when he left, all the diag started getting funneled back to me. So I'd say all of it. Anything that was harder, anything that anyone struggled with, or, or, hey, this is a comeback. I need you to look at it.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So, and honestly, it's when I was doing it before for them, and I'd learned what I'd learned, and coming back and naturally falling into that role, I wasn't real involved with any of the Facebook stuff or online or, any of this until maybe a year or so ago.
All right.
And so, I mean, I had a community or two, IATN back in the day, or I bought my first Picoscope through Auto Nerds. So we had that group, and I had those resources, but not real active anymore. So I'd kind of like, I'm pretty good at this. I'm a decent, I'm better than a decent tech, I would consider myself. Well, I then fast forward to meeting and engaging with people online. I instantly was like, I don't know shit. Like literally, I know nothing compared to these people. And it was incredibly humbling, and which is great, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I don't want to look at it and be like, oh no, I was the best. I am not the best. Everybody makes mistakes. I make mistakes. But I was like, there's a lot more to learn. And
I had the exact same experience getting out into some of these communities and groups and stuff that, for most of my career as a technician working on cars, I didn't even know they existed. Right. Like you say, IATN, and you had the hotline at Identifix. I don't even know if you count that, but that was pretty much it. That's the resources that I knew. And then I'd go to some like Napa training events and stuff like that. Where it's just some local guys, they get pizza and half the guys sleep. Right. I didn't think there's anything beyond that until I started. It was really Facebook that got me into it. And then there was some YouTube stuff that I branched out into after that. And yeah, like you say, like I thought I was pretty sharp, you know, because I was the lead tech at my store, and I got all the, you know, diag and stuff like that. And I thought I was pretty sharp. And then you start meeting with the people like at this event, and there's just level upon level that are way above you. Or, you know, me personally, I felt, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm way down here compared to all the talent out there. But I mean, it's humbling, but it's a good thing too, right? Like, okay, I have that much more to aspire to. Absolutely. And I can continue to improve and continue to get better. And here's my examples of somebody that's doing it. You know, I can at least strive to be like that person, you know, whether I do it or not, but I can at least, there's some room for growth, right? So you're not just stagnant. You're not just doing the same thing day after day after day. Like I can get better. So that's a cool part about this industry, and coming to stuff like this, going to events, getting in groups. That's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, and it sounds like I kind of hit the same thing there. And so I'd done a few WorldPAC classes that were local.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm out of Greensboro over here, so Greensboro High Point area. So I had done, I think, one in Greensboro at one point. I've done a handful down in Charlotte, and that was it. Everything else was, there was a couple of online things back then that I knew of, but again, at that time, the shop wasn't going to pay for it, and I wasn't making enough to pay for it. So, you know, it was limited then. But then, you know, like the last year, for instance, I was like, something just, and I don't remember, I'm trying to remember what like triggered it and set it off, that like this whole other level of passion where I want to learn more. It's like I was at first, it's like I need to learn more. No, I want to learn more. Mm-hmm. I can get by doing what I'm doing. I have for years, and there's people that get by with a lot less. But I really enjoy diagnosing, and you know, I enjoy using a scope, and just thinking about all the things of what are people capable of that I'm not, and you know, so I actually started going back through Standard Danner's information, and it was like, oh my God, like I know that, but some of that stuff I literally just forgotten because it's just not the way I tested.
Sure. Yeah.
You know, even basic scan tool data PIDs is not something that I ever started using until a couple years ago, because Europeans, here's a factory scan tool, aftermarket scan tool ain't going to get you anywhere, here's a factory scan tool. Most of those give you test plans and stuff like that. And I'm not saying that's going to get you everything you need. A lot of times, especially like drivability stuff, you can pick up a generic OBD2 scanner as long as it's, you know, a capable one, and you can get a lot of what you need, if not all of it. So
sure, yeah.
So that's, you know, that's fascinating. Oh wait, I don't have to have this factory level tool to diagnose something. So just all of it. And I did get the old shop to sign us up for CTI, their virtual classes. So
okay,
I have been doing those nonstop.
Nice.
They usually have them Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday nights. At a couple of different time zones or whatever. I've had some that I'm doing 2 a night all week for weeks.
Okay.
Just because it's like I haven't had any training, and all of a sudden this opens up and I'm like, oh man, I don't want to wait for that to come back around. So
yeah.
I'm just like getting, you know, it's like a fire hydrant coming at me trying to take all this in. But I've got to meet a lot of great people, and, you know, a lot of them, they build on each other and stuff like that. So I would definitely say that I've come a long ways in 6 months from even where I was. And that's, you know, then I was like, I got to get to an actual training event. You know? And yeah, the classes are great because I want some more of that. And everybody's like, the networking is really where it's at. The people you meet and the connections you make, and that kind of thing is, you know, the friends you make and stuff like that. It's really way beyond the classes. And I was like, really? And I was like, I guess, yeah, I mean, I could see that. And then I start getting into some of the messenger chat groups and stuff that are on there. People are adding you here, you know, if you, this group and that group. And so now you have somebody that you'll stop and help if something comes through. It's not like, let me check. I don't really have time to get in that right now. I got to go do this job. This is like, no, these are the people that'll help. Like, I'm going to stop right this second. I'm going to help because I know you're sitting there and you're stuck or something, or you need a piece of information that you can't get or whatever. And I mean, I've heard you talk about some of those, I don't know what kind of groups they are, same kind of groups as far as mobile guys or EEPROM stuff or whatever it is. And, you know, you get those networking people that you know,
It's huge.
Right.
Yeah, when you can get into a chat group, because it's just a group of, I don't know, 10, 15
right.
guys that are all doing something similar, or there's a focus for the group, and it's different than like a Facebook group, because anybody can post, and it, like you say, it's not always immediate. Depends on the group you're in. But those chat groups, like, yeah, you're probably going to get a response from somebody right now, and maybe not everybody has the answer for what you're looking for, but they'll point you in the right direction, or they'll get you thinking about something else. And to have that in your pocket when you're doing this stuff is huge. It's insane. If you keep up with it too, you can see, oh, this person has this problem that I hadn't seen before, but now I just got to watch him work through it, right? And maybe I take some notes or jot down something from that, and then 2 weeks later I do run into that problem. Oh, I already saw him deal with it, right? That sort of stuff is invaluable as well. So, and then that's how you create those relationships, is coming to events like this and getting to know people. I've had some people reach out to me like, hey, can you add me to some of these chat groups? And I didn't start any of them. I've been added. It's kind of like, not that we're secret, but it's kind of like, well, you gotta come meet these people, and you gotta get involved. And that's how we create those little small communities, in order to help each other out.
Well, that's what the Facebook groups are for, is to be in there. These are a little more, intimate, if you will.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, for sure.
Is literally more or less a local group. It's mostly North Carolina. There's a little bit right here in South Carolina, which I had no clue how many of these names and, guys that are incredible that are in other Facebook groups, stuff like that. I'm like, oh my God, this guy, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh God, these people are in here. Like, I'm just gonna be quiet. It's like, I didn't realize who I was around.
Yeah, I've had that too. Where I'm like saying stuff. I'm like, oh boy, and then you realize, like, everybody in here is smarter than me. Yeah, but it's definitely cool. So the place you're at, you says AutoLogic. That's not the same like tool company, AutoLogic.
Right? No, it's not. And it's funny. That's how I first found out about them, because originally the other shop, we had the original blue box AutoLogic tool.
Yep.
And when we started back then with them, and one day I was searching. Let me look up their website, because I need to AutoLogic. And it's like, what the hell is this? Oh, it's a shop down the road. What? Oh. So yeah, and that was 12, 13 years ago. I mean, that was a long time ago when I saw that. Never gave it much thought. Again, one of these locals groups I was in, and then and they like to give each other nicknames, so I don't even recognize the names. So now I'm looking at all this, and I'm like, who is that? And I click on it, and then it pops up the Facebook profile, and I'm like, oh God, I've just been talking to, and it's like, just.
Yeah.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
But you don't feel that way when you're,
Well, when it's somebody that you respect for one reason or another,
right.
Maybe, a class they taught, or some content they put out, or
Absolutely.
Whatever it is. And yeah, you're just kind of like, oh, wow, this, when you respect your peers like that, it definitely makes the interaction different. And yeah, I experienced that at these events quite a bit when I'm, working or talking to somebody or in somebody's class. You interact differently when you got a lot of respect for somebody, basically. Is the basic way to put it. But it's cool to be able to bump elbows with those kind of people too. So the shop you're at, everything, or
they work on anything and everything. If they'll drive in or roll in or So and part of when I knew I was going to leave the other shop, and things were getting worse and worse in certain areas, and that's fine. And I knew I was going to do something. I was going to make a change. I had to make a change. We had to make some moves. So I started looking around, and I'm looking at what's available. Well, European cars is what I worked on for 15 years. So it's what I've been around. So, with Honda there just shortly, I was like, well, let me look at the shops that, just filtering out all the stuff that everything else. Let's just see kind of what I know, who I know, what shops work on what. And I had it down to 3, like before. There was only 3 that I even wanted to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And I went and talked to somebody at all 3. And I knew somebody, I personally knew somebody at a couple of them, and then the other one was one through one of these groups, which is Automotive, the one I went to. The owner was in this group, and I'm like, oh, okay. So we'd only had a little bit of interaction, but I ended up going by and seeing the different guys, stuff like that. And part of the reason I made the choice to go there, one, they literally just felt like you knew you were going to be taken care of, hands down. I mean, training, everything. Like they're going to send you to training. They're going to do that. You need tooling. Tooling was never an issue. He has and has always been a technician. So, he has no problem buying tools. So, which is great because there's more scan tools there than I've seen in a building.
Yeah.
But I haven't been to the research center, so maybe that's,
Okay.
I hear there's walls of scan tools there.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
But part of the reason I wanted to go there was, as much as it scared the absolute crap out of me, is they work on everything. And now that's going to challenge me. That's going to put me outside of my comfort zone, which is going to also rapidly increase what I'm going to learn, whether I want to or not. I'm going to have to quickly. And so I'm still the first week was like, did I do the right thing? Because it's just like I've touched like one Audi, which isn't even my strong suit. So I'm like,
right.
And then, a week later, I'm like, these aren't that bad. I don't know them, but nothing's been like, oh my God, I can't figure this out. And they've handed me some things that were really old stuff. Nissan Pathfinder, an older one or something. Have fun with that one. And I'm like, how long has this been here? The new guy comes in. Let's give him all the stuff that's been sitting out back. Let's see what he can really do. And that's fine. That's cool. So I'm okay with that. And, let's forget about who's on the front of the car. How's the system work?
Yep.
What's it doing?
Yep.
Okay, let's just go with that.
Right.
So
that's the biggest limitation a lot of time is, can I get the information that I need to figure this out? That's
right. So just let's stop looking at what shape the engine is and what badge is on the front, and and that's after a couple of things like that. It was like, because I get a repair order for whatever it is, and it's something of course I've never touched, and I'm like, I wonder how this works. I wonder what I gotta do. It's like, hold on. Just go verify the complaint, see what it's doing, and just see what happens.
Yeah.
And so once I kind of got a couple of those that I'd done, it's like, oh, they're just cars. They're all just cars. Now, granted, I don't know if it would have been as easy if I would have went from domestic or Asian to European.
Sure.
However, being that I worked on European, and there's cars you can't find information for anyways.
Right.
It's
I would imagine it's an easier transition, but it really comes down to what are you used to. Right. What have you become accustomed to? And then if you switch that up, there's going to be some hurdles that you got to get over. But yeah, at the end of the day, it's all nuts and bolts. It's all electricity. And you find that a lot of the things are similar across all the brands. As far, even coming to computer strategy and stuff like that, it's very similar. And then there's little intricacies here and there that are going to be unique to BMW or Honda or whatever. But for the most part, if you can get the basics down, you can tackle anything, and then, reach out for some help or do some training to get that last, little portion for all of them. But yeah, it's just about going for it. Like you say, like, I'm going to dive in and force myself to figure this out. And then you're better because of it. And then the more you do, I always thought the more you do, the more you take on, the more confidence you have to take on something else new, right? Because you're like, well, okay, I figured out this thing that I didn't know anything about. I'm sure I can figure out this new thing, rather than when I first started, I'm like, oh, this is new. I don't know this. I don't think I can figure this out. Sort of
it's
attitude.
A mental game,
yeah,
it's
exactly.
Way more in your head. And I find that, even when I was a former team leader or whatever, the guys that I'm trying to help, and I've always navigated towards that too. I didn't have the easiest path. A lot of that was self-inflicted. I dropped out of tech school because I needed a job. I needed money.
Sure.
And then I went to a place that I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone that was like really good and that could help me. Like, there was guys that knew stuff or whatever, but at the same time, it was flat rate. They're not going to want to spend a lot of time with me. So seeing how much I struggled going through, I've always learned lean towards, I want to help somebody when they need help. And I want, hold on, there's an easier way. Let's think about this. And so getting people out of their heads is a big one, because a lot of it's a mental block. And I would say a lot of people probably still do it. I still do it. I'll go to a car and I'm like, overthinking. I'm like, whoa, hold on, just back up, step up, forget about it. Let's go look over the computer for a second. What's the car? What's going on? Let's find some information, and like Brandon Steckler in some of his classes, Paul Danner, the way he teaches, they're teaching you core fundamental concepts. They're not saying, that they're not saying, hey, on this Mercedes, it's this, on this BMW, it's this Honda, it's this, no. This is how tensiometers work. This is how DC motors work. This is how pressure sensors work. Now they're all the same.
Sure.
Now, like Brandon Steckler uses the 85-15% rule or whatever.
Sure.
So 85% of all things on cars are the same.
Yep.
The 15% is how they choose to do it, or maybe the strategy. And so, using that alone is can really take you, a long way. So
definitely. Yep. Totally agree. Cool. What's your plans or hopes for the future in this industry?
Well, the two things I enjoy the most are that I've always enjoyed diagnostics. So ultimately, if I could spend my days doing diagnostic, I've had a real pull towards mobile. Granted, the tooling and all that, and starting with my wife has been on and off in school because of kids and stuff. So she's still in school. Granted, she should finish another year or so. But with me being the only source of income, 4 kids and a wife and a car and a house and no, I just can't take a risk like that right now. Going mobile on my own. But the concept is really intriguing because I get to focus on doing what I love, and that's I want to figure the problem out. The other thing again, and I got to thinking about it this weekend because I got to spend some time with Paul Danner and Brian Pollock, he creates some videos for him as well, and just incredible people. And so getting some one-on-one time with them, thinking about how I learned, how I came up, and what I didn't have, and how much simpler this could be. That's what I've linked together towards really having a passion for teaching. When I say teaching, I know you did community college, right? Right. And I've thought about that, and I don't think that's a route I want to go. I don't know that I would like it or not, obviously, because I haven't done it. I'm interested in stuff like this. Like I want to, or even CTI, their virtual classes and stuff. That's really appealing to me because one, I know that, I've heard things in different industries or different trains of thought where, you learn something, you do it, then you teach it. The teaching is part of solidifying the learning it. So if I can teach it, I hope I know it, or at least, you can tell someone who teaches something and they don't know it.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, if you really want to learn something extremely well, try teaching it to somebody else. You'll discover your own blind spots pretty quickly when you do that. If you're really, honestly assessing yourself during that process. That's teaching. There's a pyramid of learning, I think it is, and teaching's at the top, right? That you can do lectures down at the bottom or whatever, and then there's steps up, but teaching's at the top. Like that's where you, the teacher, are going to learn the most about the subject that you're teaching. So it is a pretty powerful tool for sure.
So those are the two things that I really have a strong pull towards. That's the things that that's the things that excite me. That's the things that make me want to do more, want to learn more. It's not. I could care less about hanging the parts. I'll do it because that's what I need to do right now. That's fine.
Makes money.
Ideally, if I could have a job doing the diagnostics and mentoring or teaching others or whatever. And it wouldn't have to be necessarily like this. It could be just, hey, we got a shop. Let's, or if it was a larger shop or something, and hey, let's train the younger guys the proper way and bring them up correctly. Spending time. Okay, hold on. Let's go through this. What would you do? Okay, why would you do it? Let's get them thinking and just trying to get them to learn to think on their own. Because I find that that's probably the biggest thing is people don't want to stop and think about it, It's they get those blinders, of course, flat rate, got to turn hours, got to turn, which again is, I don't love the system. However, once you're good at it, you know, you can make a lot of money on it, obviously. So I've done fairly well for myself on that. In the beginning, I struggled hard because.
Yep.
So, however, I see it in others where, you know, you look at that job and you're like, they really do that? Did they not put that back? Where's the bolts for this? Did they not? Why is this broken? Why is this bent? And,
yeah.
You know, there's things that I think are completely acceptable to do that with, to a degree. And I think there's certain parts of that they're absolutely not. And that's where I think putting somebody on flat rate and putting them where they're short on hours or something like that, you'll really quickly find out which way they're going to go.
Yeah.
So are they going to turn into a straight hack? Or are they going to do just what they have to and still do it right? Even when I got to the point where, and I'm not talking about, hey, I can find a shortcut. They told me to do this. You don't do that at all. You can just do this instead. You know, that I think everybody should be doing. You know, just because they came out with it this way doesn't mean you have to do it that way. So, but you know, if I can bend this bracket back a little bit, but then bend it back and put it back, and there's no damage done. Okay, sure, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't care about that. You know, if you're going to take a bracket off and I ain't putting that back, that's going to take too long.
Right.
What bracket are we talking about? You know, things like that. It's, you know, you find it real quick, and that's what I'm not okay with for sure. But it got to the point even when I get frustrated when I'm under the gun like that, and it's like, okay, all right, I can do this, and that's okay, and then I'm like, no, don't do that. But that's going to save a lot of time. You know, you go back and forth in your head. You're like, well, man, I could really knock this out. And then you're like, no, wait, that's not okay. You check yourself.
Yeah,
it's like, you know.
Some shortcuts are not acceptable.
Right, exactly. And, you know, some of those I've learned the hard way. You do it and you're like, oh, God, that would...
Snap.
You know, right? It's like, hey, we're going to need some more parts. So...
Yep.
You know.
We all been there.
But yeah, sure. I mean, that's ultimately what I think I would enjoy doing. You know, I say that because, you know, I know the diagnostic side. Hands down, I could do that day in, day out. No problem. So right before I left the other shop, that's what I did for the last 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
We've been talking about it, and they had purchased a new building they're renovating, and they're like, when we get over there, we're going to change all this stuff and do all this. And I was like, all right, cool. And I was like, you know, I keep having to help so much, and like to the point where I'm doing nothing but diag. I'm like, you know, I can't physically turn more hours diagnosing. It's I turn what I turn, right? Well, in flat rate, because I'm proficient at these things, I can, you know, say double it. I don't know. And so as my hours kept dropping, I was like, so, you know, we got to do something different here.
Yeah.
Either I can't be your diag guy, or we got to, if you want me that, fantastic. I'd love to change this pay plan and do something that's a little more.
Yep.
So I got to do that for, I'd say 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
That's literally all I did. Even if I sold something, unless it was like, okay, this thing needs this fuse box. Okay, I'm going to put that in because I need to verify, see what else is happening, make sure there's nothing that I can't check right now because of something and things like that. But if it was like, okay, you know, I diagnosed this, whatever, here, you go put those parts on. Like, I mean, they had me stacked out for weeks on diag because it literally, as soon as that change was official, I could see everything in my work in progress. I was like, oh, okay. And, you know, but you know, somebody's over here and they're doing something, you know, they spent their hour doing their evaluation, preliminary checks and stuff. And then it's like, and they'll come over and, you know, hey, I'm getting ready to replace this. I was like, hang on, let's take a look. And well, let's check this and this. And then so they'll come back and like, well, this is what I got. And I'll be like, okay, that's not your problem. That's not your problem. And it's like, what do I do? And I'm like, how much time do you have into this? Maybe let me have that, and you go do something else for a little while. Yeah. I'll be happy to fill you in on it, even explain, teach you, whatever you want to do. But right now, let's focus on you turning hours because they want the money. They need the money. They don't want. Most people don't enjoy getting stuck on diag. Well, I mean, people here might, but
right.
I mean, I do. But yeah, even when I was working on that one pathfinder I was talking about, it was nothing crazy at all. But it was one of those things. I'm over there. I'm like, yeah, and, you know, I pulled the scope out to scope a couple of signals and stuff, and they're like, oh man, I don't want to do this. This is what I live for. Like, I have to stop myself from pulling out the scope unless I need it, because I can scope everything.
Sure. Yeah, it's easy to go
Honda
on
says
those
scope all the
rabbit
things. I could
Uh-huh.
do that if I were allowed, but that's not the most efficient way. So, but,
Definitely.
yeah, hopefully those I'll get to do more of those too.
Cool. I like it. Well, thanks for doing this with me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
All right. One more big thank you to Scott for joining me on the show. I really appreciate it. And it was great to meet him. Also want to give a big thank you to everybody that's listening to the podcast and all the feedback that I've been getting. Great stuff. Appreciate it. Keep it coming. It's great to get to meet, at least online, but meet everybody and share some stories and information. It's pretty cool stuff. So keep it up. And other than that, let's all get out there and start fixing the world one car at a time.